Welcome to Ebony in Time, and I'm Leona Dooley. Today, we are participating in a collaboration with Miss Denise of Homemaking with Denise. Now, the fun thing is going to be that we are going to make budget and pantry-friendly desserts. Now, I'm going to share with you at least 5 of my favorite desserts. But let's talk about some of the things that you absolutely want to make sure that you have in your pantry, because when you do, then you're able to make a dessert in little or no time. It can be a cake, it can be a pie, it can be any of those things that you want them to be. It might even be some muffins that perhaps you plan for dessert and they end up as breakfast. So whatever the case may be, desserts are great to have and so easy to put together. Now, you want to always make sure that you have plenty of sugar and flour. Now, of course, you could have not only white sugar, you could have brown sugar, you could use honey, you could use stevia, you could use, there are several other like cane sugars that you could also use, but you want to make sure that you have a good sweetener. And like I said, you want to make sure that you have flour. You might decide that you want cake flour for a particular cake, but most of the time I keep all-purpose flour, and that's typically what I use for my desserts. I also make sure that I have salt, that I have baking powder, and that I have baking soda, because so often some of the baking that you use is going to need to use some of these items. Now, there are some regular spices that you always want to make sure that you have. So let's take a look at those. Now, some of the other basics that you may want to have would be things like extract. Like, I love to make a coconut pound cake. And so I usually have some type of pure coconut extract on the shelf. Nutmeg, especially in the fall, is one of those things that's going to go particularly into a great apple dessert. You may have nutmeg, you may have cinnamon, ground cinnamon that you also want to include. If you're working with pumpkin, you may opt to just buy a pumpkin spice. And always, always, always have a container of pure vanilla extract, because these are all necessary for making those desserts that you love. Now, just a reminder to you, if you did not catch last week's 5 delicious soups for the soul, then you'll want to go back, and I put that link down in the description box, because I did 5 soups and Miss Denise did 5 soups, and oh my goodness, every one of them are tried and true, and our family loves them. So be sure to check those out. And don't forget, when you finish watching my desserts, zip on over to Miss Denise's channel and check out her desserts, because she has some absolutely slamming desserts that you're going to want to put on your table for your family as well. And you know, as always, we will either link the video, the original video, or we will put the recipe down in the description box. So today, let's get started with our first dessert. Now, one of my absolute favorite fall desserts is pumpkin gingerbread. Oh my goodness. It is so moist, so tender, so delicious. And I think if you try it, your family will love it. Now let's get started. Let's put together some pumpkin gingerbread. And, you know, I love gingerbread and I love the flavors of pumpkin bread. So we're going to combine those two and make something a little bit unique that you might want to serve at your holiday dinner. And you know what the nice thing about this is that you can prepare it and freeze it and have it already in your freezer and ready for the holiday. So let's put that together. We're going to start with, and I've got my recipe here just to make sure I don't forget anything. We need 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. So I'm using my King Arthur. That doesn't have to be your brand, but that's mine. Get a good cup of flour. There's one. And this recipe is very forgiving, so things don't have to be exactly perfect. There's 2, and then I'm going to get a ½ cup. Okay, there's my ½ cup. 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. And like I said, the brand you choose is up to you. From there, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of ground ginger. But I'm going to kick it up another notch, so you just watch and see what we're going to do. All right, so here's our ground ginger, and I need a teaspoon. Okay, ready to go. I love these little magnetic spoons I got from Amazon. Notice how it's an oval shape, so when we get ready to put it into the bottle, it goes in very nicely. And I can just slide it and bring it out. So there's our teaspoon of ground ginger, ready to go. I'm also, not at this point, but I am going to add some additional crystallized ginger, which is just going to kick that gingery flavor up. So hold on to that. All right, so we've got our ginger in there. And from there, I'm going to use pumpkin pie spice. And the reason I'm doing that is that it's going to save me some time. So this is a brand new container. I buy it according to the season. Ooh, it smells wonderful. It has all of these flavors. It's got cloves. It's got allspice. Let's see, what else is in there? It has cinnamon and nutmeg. All of that's in there. So we're going to add in, I'm actually going to put in 2 teaspoons. There's 1, and there's 2 of our pumpkin pie spice. And, you know, this is something that you always get a small container of because, you know, the flavor is just not going to last until next holiday. So get a small container, use it in everything you can, and then you won't feel bad if you have some left over that you just have to toss because it's not as perfect as you'd like for it to be. Okay, so we've got those seasonings in. I'm going to add in about a ½ teaspoon of salt. Okay, I've got my salt. I'm going to add a teaspoon. I love these little wooden spoons. I got these on Amazon too, but they're perfect. They go right in my container and it's ready to go. So that little spoon stays in there strictly for the salt. So I have my salt and all the other seasonings. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a larger spoon and give all of this a good stir. So that all of those seasonings will have a chance to go through our flour. I also need to add in, let's see, a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, I have my teaspoon of baking soda. So I'm going to sprinkle and put that little spoon back in its container. Baking soda, and give all of this a good mix before I start to add anything liquidy into our batter. So there we go. Now I'm going to put in a ½ cup of oil, and you use whatever oil you like. I wouldn't use olive oil because olive oil has a certain fragrance. Today I've got grapeseed oil, and that's what's going to go in the pumpkin bread. This is a 1/4 cup measure, so I'm going to have to use 2 of these. So we've got 1. And I have 2. That's a ½ cup of oil, whatever type of oil you like. And like I said, this just happens to be grapeseed oil. In a separate container, I'm going to crack 2 eggs. And I'm doing it in a separate container because just in case there's a little bit of shell or whatever, I won't have to fish it out of our bread. Okay, I have 2 eggs, and I'm actually going to give them a little bit of a whisk. And then we're going to add that into our bowl. Notice everything's going in. This is such an easy recipe. All right, we've got our canola oil, we've got our eggs, and what we need at this point is a smaller can. This was the only size can I had. This is a 29-ounce can, and I'm going to need half of this in the recipe. So that's what we're going to do. Half of this can will go into the recipe. And it should come out to about 2 cups. So half the can is here in our recipe, ready to go. There we go. And we're going to need to add some sugar. So I need a cup of sugar. I'm going to do a half cup of brown sugar, half cup of brown sugar, and a half cup of just regular granulated sugar to get in that little extra flavor. So let me get an extra spoon here because I don't want to stick this container down into my sugar. And I'm going to pack it. Oop. You know, a little bit of extra won't hurt. All right. All right, so I have a half cup of brown sugar. You know, brown sugar has molasses. Even though we're going to add some additional molasses, I did want to add that brown sugar. All right, so that's our half cup. Actually, that was a 1/4 cup. So I want a half cup. Let me check that. Yes, I want a half cup, so I need 1 more. Because we need a full cup of sugar. All right, so that's our brown sugar. Keep this in mind, cooks. Your breads like this, your little easy breads like this, are so much fun to make. All right, so let me get my regular sugar. And it just so happens that I have a half cup already in the container. So I'm going to get a half cup of regular granular sugar. That's ready, and put that back where it goes. So the sugar is taken care of. The only thing left are the molasses. And these are Grandma's molasses. And we need about a cup of Grandma's molasses. And even though we use the brown sugar, we're still going to add in a full cup. And that cup almost comes out to a full jar. 1 cup. All right, so there's our molasses. Our jar is just about gone. I'm going to go ahead and let that stream and get the last of the goodness out of that jar. And in fact, I'm probably going to take a spatula and go down in there. But I want to get all of this out of the cup and into our bread mix. Now, as I was saying, you know, when you're preparing for holidays or special dinners, then keep in mind that you're going to want to prepare some things in advance. So that's what we're doing. We're preparing in advance. So that's our molasses. And I'm going to see if I have a spatula skinny enough to get down in this jar. I'm going to cheat. I need a half cup of boiling water. So I put some water in here. I'm going to give it a good shake. So I have the rest of the molasses that was left in the jar, and I have the half cup of boiling water that needs to go in this mixture. Now, for just a second, I'm going to set that off to the side, and I'm going to do a little beating because I want to get this nice and mixed, and I don't want to work, you know, do something that's going to mess up our eggs. So I'm going to get our beaters all together here. Get them in. Okay. I have this down on low because we don't want to over mix it. Okay, now I'm going to drizzle in our liquid while it's beating. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Ah, it smells wonderful. Going to loosen up your batter, which is what you want. You could certainly put nuts in this gingerbread, in this pumpkin gingerbread, but we're not doing that today. We're just going to have our ginger crystals. I'm going to take my spatula and scrape down the sides now that I have everything in there. The only thing left is to add the crystallized ginger. So I'm going to set this off to the side. Like I said, this is called crystallized ginger. Now, how much you put in is very candy-like, and it comes, it smells good, in little cubes. So we're going to add about a handful of these little cubes, because remember, this is going to make at least 2 batches. So I'm going to put those in, and I don't want to overuse them, but they're good. Grandma is all gone. Now, put it on low. And we're going to mix our little candy cubes in. So every now and then, when someone's eating this bread, they're going to get a little bit of the crystallized ginger, the candied ginger as well. Just adds another little layer of flavor and just a tiny bit of heat. All right, there we go. Let's taste just a little bit. That really is very tasty. And you know, I would suggest that you make 2 batches of this so that you'll have 4 loaves, have some for breakfast, have some just sitting on your buffet table, and have some in the freezer ready for another day. Now, I have 2 loaf containers that I'm going to be using, and this recipe actually prepares 2 loaves. So I'm going to try to keep them even. And we'll try to even them out if we can. The nice thing about the silicone containers is that your loaves should come out perfectly. And you know, when you take them out of the oven, once they're finished baking, then you're going to let them sit until they're cool. And then take them out. Don't try to remove them and they're still warm. Okay, so we have 2 nice loaves. I'm going to clean them up just a little bit. Let me get a towel and get all the sides cleaned up. All right, the batter's in each of the loaves, and they are about as even as I think I can get. And I'm also bringing you in a little closer for some of those things that I used. Our pumpkin pie spice, our crystallized ginger, of course the ground ginger. We used brown sugar and granulated sugar, as well as, even though I purchased a 29-ounce can, I only used half. So I have enough for another batch of pumpkin bread. I'm sitting my container inside of another baking pan so that it will be more stable in the oven. We're going to cook it until it's done. Now is the time to test. And the secret of testing, poke it into the center and see if it comes out clean. If it comes out clean, she's ready. There's one. And there's two. They're ready. Let's take them out. Pumpkin gingerbread is so nice and spicy. And while I love it warm, we really cannot cut this gingerbread just yet. It needs to stay in this container for at least about 20 to 30 minutes before we even attempt to take it out, because otherwise it's so moist it will fall apart. But you know what? It's going to be great for your dinner table as your dessert, or even, it's wonderful with your good morning coffee. So let's move on to our next dessert. All right, now in my bowl, I have 1.5 cups of flour. And to that, I'm going to add some baking soda. Now today, I'm using self-rising flour, and so therefore, it already has its baking soda. But if you were using all-purpose flour, then you would add in a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So we're good to go. All right, next we're going to add in some ground cinnamon. You get a spoon. I'm going to put in a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Teaspoon ground cinnamon, and I'm going to add in some pumpkin pie spice. Hoping this is a little slimmer top. And it smells so good. Now, technically, you could have put together your own pumpkin pie spice. It has a little bit of cinnamon, so that's why I didn't go crazy with the cinnamon over here. So I'm going to add in, I think I probably have just enough of our pumpkin pie spice right there. Now, our pumpkin pie spice, this is McCormick, and I love McCormick. McCormick has great spices, and they're very true case. Now I'm going to add in just a smidget of, just a little extra smidget of nutmeg, just a little. And now I'm going to mix all of that up real good. And you'll know when it's all well mixed, because you won't be able to tell where things are, and you're going to be able to smell. Oh, it smells divine. All right, so we're mixing this up and trying to just get all of those flavor profiles ready to go, because as far as I'm concerned, now I have to tell you, I really prefer sweet potato over pumpkin, especially if I'm doing pies or cakes, but you know, it is what it is. Now, so we've got our dry ingredients in. I have raisins here because we're going to be adding raisins. And I also have some granola. So, I need a large egg. Per cookie. See if I can get these sliced pretty nice. The more solid they are, the better they slice. Otherwise, we're going to have to. You can see this one fell apart. I think that may be the knife. So I'm just going to kind of pile them up right there and push and get them right in there. Let's see if I can get a better knife. Okay. I don't usually have that much trouble. You know what it is? It's those frozen raisins. It's giving me a hard time. Yeah. There we go. I'm going to put 3 across. Any little bits and pieces, just stick on a cookie, and it will all meld together. And I'll get 3 more, and then that will be enough for Papa and I. Okay, you're probably wondering, what happened? The cookies are already mixed. Yes, I left that part out because I knew you knew how to put all those ingredients into the bowl and just mix them up. Now, what I did do is that I put them into a log and rolled them with some parchment paper and placed them in the freezer because these particular cookies are a little soft and it's going to take the coldness of the dough to keep those cookies from spreading out all over the baking sheet. So that's the reason why I did that. And I will finish up the cookies. We'll get them on the tray and enjoy a beautiful tray of these cookies. Everything comes straight from the pantry. Either it's our regular pantry or from the refrigerator. So let's move on to our next dessert. I'm going to measure, that's 1, I need 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 more is going to be our 6. So we have 2 cups, teaspoon of baking powder,
1 teaspoon, and a half teaspoon of baking soda. This, I'm going to add in a teaspoon of cinnamon. We're going to start with 1 teaspoon, see what it looks like. And actually, I think I'll do it a heaping teaspoon. Well, maybe just a little, because it is, it's only 2. So I'm going to say that was about 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon that I'm putting in. Now, cinnamon, and I'm going to get a half teaspoon of salt, and that's sea salt. Butter is softened, and I'm going to give it just a moment. In fact, I'm going to take a cold spoon and just stir it a bit. And that's to make sure that everything is nice and soft. I'm going to add in here 1 cup of sugar, and then we're going to add the mixer into it. 1 cup of sugar. All right, guys, we got 1 cup of sugar. There we go. You know, when you need that half cup measure, that's the one I think I really use the most, and it's nowhere to be found. So I've got my blender ready, my mixer, and I'm going to mix this until it's light and fluffy. Okay, I'm going to add in 1 of the eggs. I'm going to put it into one of the measuring cups, actually. Make sure that I don't have any shells in. There's 1. And this is when you really want to beat until it gets to a light, kind of a light, fluffy yellow, almost like whipped cream. And it's just about there at this point for that 1 egg. Now, let's go to egg 2. All right. I'm going to put it in. All of that's going to go in the sink. Put these in the sink. And I'm going to go ahead and whip, whip, whip. Okay. Have the pure vanilla. We need 1.5 teaspoons. I'm just going to put in 2. That's 1 and 2. We like vanilla. Okay, that's the last of the things that need to be measured. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm going to turn the oven on 350. The good thing about this part, we can beat all day, and it would not bother this mixture. But once we add it to the flour, we need to mix very little because we don't want the gluten to set up. Okay, I'm going to pop those into the sink and set this off to the side. Now to bring that flour mixture in, because we're not going to use the mixer for that. We're going to actually use mussels for this because we do not want to overmix these muffins. Now, let's get a spatula, and I'm going to pour this in. Okay. All right, that's done. I'm going to keep the spatula handy because I like to use it for folding when it's time to fold in the apples. So right now I'm just going to give everything a good stir. This is going to be pretty thick at this point. just have to stay at it, stay with it. Good turn, because you want this to, there we go. All right, I like that. That's where we want it. Now, I'm going to add in the chopped apples. And we need some pecans. I've been on a pecan thing lately. I love pecans, and it's that time of the year. So I am going to take out a hand of pecans while that's there. Okay, so I'm going to put this back together. I love this little chopper. This is one of those Tupperware choppers. Put those pecans in. Now, if you like walnuts over pecans, go for it. You know, whatever kind of nuts you like, or if you don't like nuts at all, don't. If you want to add raisins to yours, go for it. Yeah. Okay, guys, we're ready to move on. I think we need something a little stiffer. Now, if you look at it and you think it needs a little more apples, once you get everything in here, you can certainly add a few more. If you're just cutting up apples, and you're going to need about 2 cups of apples, and you want them diced up pretty tiny. I'm using that apple pie filling, so I'm going to play with the amount. I think I've got plenty in there from what I can see. All right, I'm going to scrape all that off. That's my oven saying it's ready. I have already prepared my muffin tins. And, okay. All right, this is a 1/3 cup. And I did a heaping 1/3 cup in there. Now, I prepared 12 cups. But I'm not sure that that's what we're going to end up with. Because, sometimes you want a big muffin. And these are going to be so good with your morning coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is, or if you want to have it with ice cream. Ice cream. That's going to be so good. You could certainly do that. And especially once that streusel topping is on there, it's going to be delicious. So I am getting those into the cups. No, I'm looking at this thinking, definitely I don't think I'll have enough for all 12. And I may want to just add to the cups that I have. Put a little extra in there and just do 6. I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Six supersize. Here we go. I'm thinking as I'm working, so I probably got quiet on you. But we are so thankful that we came through the storm with very, very, very few problems, other than a few broken limbs and some extra leaves in the yard and 1 broken shutter. We were good. So I am just very thankful for that. Okay. Well, we've got 6. I'm going to clean this up and I'm going to get them into the oven. They're going to stay in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. Just depends on your oven. And test it with a toothpick. Toothpick comes out clean, you're good to go. But you do not want them dry. So start testing at about 25 minutes. I'm bringing you down, and I have in this bowl a tablespoon of flour. I have about 2 tablespoons or so of brown sugar, and I'm looking at the mixture, thinking, well, I probably could add just a little bit more brown sugar, just a little. Okay, now I'm going to mix that up real good. Now, I'm going to take out a few pecans because I want a few pecans in there with it. And because I cleaned up and things are in the dishwasher, I'm just going to rough chop these pecans. Remember, it's only 6 of them, so I don't need a lot. Okay, so I'm going to throw those in. If you think you want more, obviously, when you look at your mixture, you can add a few more. I'll put a few more in. I kind of like to, for pecans, I want more, not less. So okay, there we go. I think that's enough. Now we give this a good stir. Get them all mixed into the mixture. And now I need about a tablespoon of butter. 1 tablespoon. You want a little loose. I'll put in just a smidget more because I want everything to be a little moist. Okay, now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open the oven, take them out for just a moment. I'm going to drop at least a tablespoon of streusel on top of each of those muffins. So let me get a towel because I want to bring you over so you can see what I'm going to do. But I don't want to burn up my thing here, so okay, I'm going to take them out, put them right here. And I'm going to leave everything pretty close because I know, and close the oven, don't want to lose that heat. And I'm going to take about a heaping tablespoon for each one. Is it messy? Yes. Now, you know, technically you could have done this before you put them in the first time. But, of course, sometimes you don't do things the easy way. And that's because you forget. This was just enough. A little bit there, a little more here, and a good streusel. Put all that in there. A little more here. For me, they baked about 35 minutes in order for them to come out pretty clean. Oh my goodness. They are beautiful. Now you can see I have another tin, and actually that tin is ready for 6 more muffins to go in. And oh my goodness, how beautiful. This is fall. I'm in love. And I am getting ready to take these out and have a taste. See those apples? They're hot. You can serve this with butter. Serve it with apple butter. Serve it with ice cream. Butter pecan ice cream would be awfully good. I've got eggs. This is for one cake. This is for another cake. I've got the sugar. It's not quite measured out yet, but I've poured it into this container, so it's going to make it easier for me to dip out what I need. Now, in this particular cake, this is going to be a sweet potato pound cake. I need 2 cups of granulated sugar. So that's the reason why I needed to get that sugar. There's 1. And let's get ready for 2. And 2. There's our 2 cups of granulated sugar to go in there. Now, over in this other container, I need 1.5 cups of sugar because this is going to be a Kentucky jam cake. And they are so good. And they're one of those cakes that I always call, it's for the adults, because we're talking about Kentucky, so you have to have some bourbon that's involved with this cake. So that's 1. I already need, I'm going to need to refill this so I can get some more sugar. Okay, I've got my 1/2 cup, and there we go. So we've got the sugar in there. Now, what I like to do is to kind of put things in and out so that when it's time to turn on the mixer and get things going, I have everything I need. So the sugar and the butter are taken care of. So next, I'm going to be measuring out flour. So hold on 1 second. Let me get the flour. Now, in this container, I need, I need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, which is what we have. But it also needs to be sifted. So I'm going to use my measuring cup, and I'm going to measure. I'm going to actually have to measure this twice because I'm going to measure before I sift, and then I'm going to measure after I sift because the volume is going to change. And I'm putting it through a sifter so that I can lighten the flour, make sure that if there's any goopy things down in there, I can get rid of. See those little knotty little things that are up in there? Throw that out. Okay, that's 1. Shake that off because we're going to have to remeasure, and this is going to be the second one. Most of the time when you're doing a cake, if you want a nice light cake, then you are going to need to, I've got a workman outside, so if you can hear that roar, there's 2, and I'm going to need 1 more cup. So let me see if I can get all that in there. Almost. Don't you love it? Just when you start, they get noisy. Okay, so those are 3 sifted cups of flour. Now that's the first sift. Now I'm going to put it over here in this other container, and I'm going to sift again. I'm going to sift 2 more times. Well, I'm on the last sift. Doesn't that just look like snow? Got 1 more little scoop to go in, and then we'll measure. All right, the last of the flour. You know, guys, wax paper is worth the investment. It just keeps your surfaces a lot cleaner, and the cleanup is just so much easier. Always cover your surface with wax paper, and Dollar Tree has it. Use their brand. But it certainly saves you in the long run. Okay, so sifting done. Now it's time to measure the 3 cups into this container. That's the first scoop. I'm going to tap, 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 tap. Then take the flat end of your knife, scrape across the top. That's 1 cup. That's an accurate measurement. Now the reason you're tapping is so that you're sure that you have filled out all of the spaces in your cup. And scrape. 2. And we need 1 more. And you're going to see the difference because this was 3 measured cups of flour that we measured out. And you're going to see how much extra flour, had we not sifted, would have gone into that cake. Look at all that. Now think of how heavy that cake would have been with all of that extra flour. That's flour we don't need. So, cake, 3 cups of flour sifted 3 times, and voila, that part is done. All right, now in the flour, there's some things that we need to add. We need to add a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And this is an organic cinnamon that I'm using that I ordered through Amazon, and then I put it into a leftover cinnamon container. So I need 1 teaspoon. Here we go. We've got 1 teaspoon. Let's put them in. I'm going to scrape it on the side. Make sure I only get 1. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I need a ½ teaspoon of baking soda. I need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So let me do the baking powder since I've got this right here. The good thing about baking powder is that it has this little flat edge, and that serves a purpose. Scoop, scrape across that flat edge, and there's 1. And there's 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Okay, got our cinnamon, got our baking powder. Ground nutmeg. Let me find nutmeg. Okay, I have a pod of nutmeg that I am going to grate. And I'm going to use this. And then that way. And it just smells so good. You can just smell that nutmeg. And our grater. Actually, it's called a microplane. I need ½ teaspoon. So I don't think I have it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and grate up some more. You have to have a little extra, it's okay. All right, let's see what we got. I needed a ½ teaspoon. I can find it. Okay, there's my ½ teaspoon. Oh yeah, I've got enough. A ½ teaspoon of nutmeg, and since I have just a little bit left, not enough, we don't want to waste it. So officially a ½ teaspoon, but if you're grinding, then you're probably going to get a little extra. So these are called whole nutmeg. As you can see, that whole nutmeg, and you get a whole jar of little pods, nutmeg pods, and you just pop that right back in. Put the top on it, and it's sealed up and ready to go for the next time. Okay? Nutmeg, check. Let me get the baking soda. Arm & Hammer is my favorite, and we need a ½ teaspoon of Arm & Hammer. So let's get our, that's 4. 1. All right, so I need 2 of these. 1. And get the next one, 2. There's my ½ teaspoon of baking soda. All right, so all the goodies are in there for that cake and ready to go. Now, if you wanted to, you could re-sift this, and that would guarantee that everything was evenly distributed throughout. And what I'm going to do is probably use a whisk and whisk it, because this cake I'm going to do by hand. And just to show you that you don't have to have a mixer. The good thing also about doing it by hand is that you won't over mix it, because certainly a pound cake doesn't take much for it to end up over mixed, and you don't want that to happen. Now I'm going to put this extra flour back into my container, and I'm going to kind of get things cleaned up, and then I'll be right back. All right, are we ready to work on the cake? I have the sugar, which in here I have 2 cups of white sugar. I'm putting in my cup of butter that's softened. Let me make sure I get it all. And I'm going to use my whisk, because you know I told you I'm going to do this one by hand. So I'm going to use the whisk, and I'm going to whisk this until I have a nice mixture. I don't know what it is about holding it, but it just gives it a more secure feeling in your hand. All right, whisking. Okay, it's a good mix. Now, I'm going to put in 4 eggs, and we're going to add one at a time. I'm going to use this little 1 cup measure. I'm going to tap it on the table. I'm going to put it into the cup to make sure that it's okay. I'm going to use a fork. I've got little pieces of nutmeg that's still down in there, but that's okay because we've got nutmeg in the recipe. And I'm going to give it a little whisk, a little stir, little fork. All right, I've broken that egg up. Now I'm going to put it into my mixture. Let's get egg 2. This is also a good way to avoid shells in your cake. Egg 2. As I'm whipping in the 4th egg, as you can see, giving it a good beat. Okay, that 4th egg has been in. You can see how pretty that is. Now I do like extract and the vanilla flavor, so I added in about a half extra. And this is pure baking vanilla extract. Now you notice I have not put the sweet potatoes in yet. And I'm about to measure out my sweet potatoes. Let me get a spatula. Okay, I have my spatula, and I had let potatoes cool because I actually cooked them. And I'm going to place them into this ramekin, which it measures out to 1 cup. But it's a little Christmas ramekin. Okay. Okay, there's 1. And it has cooled, so it won't affect the eggs at all. Let's see how much I got left of this, and I've got more cooking on the stove. Okay, not quite another cup, so I'm probably going to have to wait a minute and get the rest of those sweet potatoes in. So I'll bring you right back as soon as I get the sweet potatoes all in. Okay, I cubed the sweet potatoes, put some water over them, boiled them, and now they are steaming hot. So what I'm doing while they're still hot, I'm breaking them up and just mashing them. And then what I'll do is just spread them out on my plate again like I had done the first batch. And we'll be able to finish up the measuring of the 2nd cup. Because what they look like and what they actually end up measuring out to is very different, because I really thought I had enough to make that 2 cup without a problem. But, you know, it is what it is. So, here we go. All right, so that part of it's done. It's not like you're making mashed potatoes because you're not. So I'm taking that same plate that I had, and I am pouring all of this out onto the plate because it's going to need about 15 minutes to cool. And get all of it out. Put that in the sink. I thought I had everything clean, but you know, that's the way it goes. I still have a humongous sweet potato that's in the oven baking. So I'll use that for something else. Okay, so this needs to cool. So I'm going to set this off to the side for it to do the cooling. And then we'll be ready to continue with our cake. Okay, our cake has about another 30 minutes or so, and then I'm going to check it. In the meantime, I'm going to put together a portion of glaze. I'm starting with a cup of powdered sugar that we're going to sift, because powdered sugar has a tendency to get a little clumpy when it sits. So, and that's one of those things I try to keep on the shelf, is powdered sugar. So we're going to make our glaze. We need this, and we need some orange juice. Now, if you happen to have orange, you could certainly grate some of that orange peel into your glaze. You could do that. I'm sure it would make it quite pretty. I happen not to have an orange, so I'm just going to use my orange juice. Good thing we have that wax paper. Now remember, we have to let this cake cool a little bit before we put it over the cake. You can see how it gets really, really clumpy. I'm going to unclump, shake, and then the last little bit, toss. Okay. And I'm going to put just a little bit more in there because I only have a little bit left in this package. Well, it looks like I've got enough for 2 cups, so I'll double the recipe. All right, that's one down. Let's go ahead and put the other cup in. I'm going to get a little larger bowl so we're not making so much of a mess. Back to our red bowl here. I can just pour that there. Won't hurt it at all to get it sifted again. All right. Now, so let's sift. Uh-oh. I'm going to add just a smidget. Not quite ready. Need just a little more. Let me measure. Another full tablespoon. There we go. Remember, I doubled this amount because I want to have plenty. I don't want it to tighten up so much that I can't work with it. There we go. And there it is. I have a skewer that I get at the Dollar Tree. Notice it came out clean. So you know the cake is ready. Nice and clean. Let's see if we can get it flipped out of this pan. It's been out at least 10 minutes. And I'm going to flip it. egg doesn't want to come out. Even after a good grease, I think I'm going to have to work on him. So let me flip it back over. Okay, he didn't come out pretty, but he came out eventually. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to flip it onto this other plate, because this is really the one I want it on. So let me put it here. Now that I've gotten it out, scoot it out, hand on top, hand on bottom, and flip. That way we'll have a nice smooth cake. There we go. Voila. Now I'm going to take these little pieces of wax paper and put it around the edges. And the reason why I'm doing that is so that when I put the streusel around it, it will keep the plate clean. Okay. Now, remember we made our glaze. And he's ready. And this little container has a little like lip on it. So we'll start there and let it run. Then I'm going to take a little more. Just take the back of your spoon and just smooth it a little bit. What do you think? You want a little more? Put a little more. Okay. Now, our orange glaze is on our cake. I'll bring you down just a little bit so you can get a better view. There you go. Now, that's ready. I'm going to let that sit and continue to just kind of run off the sides. And later, I'll pull these pieces of paper out and our cake will be finished. So, sweet potato pound cake, done. In this bowl, I have a softened stick of butter, that's a ½ cup. And I'm going to add 1 egg. Now notice that I'm putting the egg in a separate container and I'm going to crack that egg and make sure that it's okay, and then I'll add it to the bowl. I have my favorite wooden spoon ready and I'm just going to give everything a little mix before it's time to actually use the mixer. I have 1 cup of brown sugar that I'm placing into these cookies, and it does not use regular granulated sugar, just brown sugar. So I'm just giving everything a good stir. So that's 1 cup of brown sugar, 1 egg, and a ½ cup of butter that has been softened. But it does require quite a few ingredients. So I'm just going to give this a really good beat until that brown sugar is well incorporated into the butter and egg mixture. And it's going to get light and fluffy. It's going to be really pretty. Very, very, very fluffy. It's going to almost look like chocolate whipped cream. And so I'm using my spatula to just kind of wipe down the sides. And you'll notice that it's going to look a little dry. But I promise you, there is nothing dry about these cookies. So let's give them a little more of a beat. You know, you can spend all day at this point beating the eggs, the butter, and the sugar. The part of your recipe that needs to be short and sweet is when you add the flour. Now, into the flour, I have my baking soda, a half teaspoon. I have salt, 1/2 teaspoon, and I have a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm just going to kind of mix all that together and just kind of incorporate it. It's not going to be totally mixed, but it will go into the recipe a little easier. So that's why I'm taking the time to do that. You don't have to. You can certainly just throw it in on top and then go. But what you don't want is a mouthful of baking soda or a mouthful of cinnamon. So that's why we're making sure that those spices and the additions are, and the leavening agents are mixed up. Now we're going to beat, and we're not going to beat a long time. We're just going to beat long enough for this to come together, and it's on low, the lowest setting that my mixer had. That's what I'm using. So we want to make sure that everything is well mixed. And you know, I can tell you now what I'm going to do with this is that once those cookies are ready, now these are our apples, the apple pie portion, you know, that I told you that I've been working on trying to use up. So I still had a little more left. So here's our apple pie that's going in. We're going to mix that up, and I had chopped those up very, very fine with my chopper so that there's going to be apple in just about every bite. But it's not going to be like applesauce. It's going to be chunky. So we're getting that apple in there and getting it well incorporated. Now once we do that, we'll add the pecans, and last but not least, we're going to add the chocolate chips, and that's going to be so good. Here we go. We got chopped pecans, and I have about a 1/2 cup, but I really have more. It's probably closer to a cup of chopped pecans, just because we like pecans, and it's pecan season. So let's use them. They are so good, and they make these cookies very good, because these cookies are going to be soft, and if you like a soft cookie, then this is the one you want. In fact, this is one of those cookies that you could, if you wanted one before you went to bed, you could put it in the microwave for a few seconds, warm it up again, and then take it out. And the chocolate is melty again. The cookie is nice and warm. Oh my goodness, how delicious. This would be so good. And to have it with ice cream, why not? So let's go to those chocolate chips. Now, you know, there's a measurement for the chocolate chips to use approximately a 1/2 cup, but I put chocolate chips in according to what, you know, when I look at it, what it looks like. Is it chocolatey enough? Do I want more? So you can see this is a 1/2 cup measure. So that's the second one, second filling. So I actually ended up putting in a cup of chocolate chips, and it was not too much. So 1 cup of chocolate chips. And these are so good. So let's get those nice and mixed. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put this in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. And the reason for doing that is because I want these cookies to have a nice shape when they bake. And sometimes when the cookie dough is going to be a soft dough, it has a tendency to run. And I don't want my cookies to run and end up looking very flat. Uh-oh. Well, I guess you see I went back and added more chocolate chips. It just needed a little more. I mean, can a girl have some chocolate? Okay, so we're going to get those incorporated. But like I said, we're going to put this in the refrigerator. And, you know, you could put the top on it. You could fix it one day and not bake them until the next day. You could actually roll it into a log and put them in your freezer and just cut them off as you wanted to bake them. But I am going to cook every one. I'm going to bake them. And we're going to set that oven on between 350 and 375. I think I'm going to start with 350 just to make sure that they don't burn. I'm going to line my pans with parchment paper so that they will be perfect. Now I've placed parchment paper on this pan and I'm using an ice cream scoop. And so I'll see what will work best to get that cookie dough out of the ice cream scoop. I'm not sure if I'm going to use a spoon or if I'll go back and use a spatula. It looks pretty good. Now we're going to put these cookies about 2 inches apart. And I can tell you, even though, you know, we put it in the refrigerator, I left it in for about an hour, it's still pretty sticky. So we're just going to continue to work through this, and I'm going to try to get a dozen on this pan. So let's just keep working. Now, wasn't that fun? You have desserts that came straight from the pantry. And you know, when you have a smartly stocked pantry, then you know that you have a homemaker's heart. Now, whether you're feeding a big family or you're just treating yourself after a long day, all of these recipes are going to prove that sweetness doesn't have to be real expensive. You just got to have a good pantry. And before you leave today, please be sure to tap that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And if you have friends who like fall desserts, then share it. And most of all, don't forget to go over to Miss Denise's channel, Homemaking with Denise, because she has some fall desserts waiting for you. So, happy fall! And I'll see you soon right here in the kitchen of Ebony's Ivy.